there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It depends on the time you're watching me. So, yes, I'm your teacher Gerardo, and as I told you, today we're going to talk about the simple past. So remember, every time we talk about the simple past, we don't talk about present, no. We don't talk about the future, but we talk about the past. We use the simple past to talk about these actions, these activities that we did in the past, right? So for example, yesterday. So we use the simple past. What about last month? Yes, we use the simple past. Or what about last week? One more time, we use the simple past. And of course, we can say 2 years ago, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. Okay? So remember, today, one more time, let's talk about the simple past. So let's start. Okay, so we are here, the simple past, and let's start with the first part, the affirmative statements. So we say that a statement is affirmative when we say the truth. We talk about the activities that we did in the past. And something that we don't have to forget is every time we talk about past, every time we use verbs in past, the verbs change into regular or irregular verbs, okay? But first, pay attention here. So the affirmative one, yes? I liked the movie yesterday. So remember, I went to the cinema, I went to Cinepolis, and yeah, I liked the movie yesterday. So that's an affirmative statement. As you can see, I'm using a verb, but this verb changed. I told you, in past, we use the verbs, but they change into regular and irregular verbs. So we have here a regular verb, liked, okay? So this is affirmative and my verb changed. But what about in negative? So in negative, we use an auxiliary and my auxiliary is didn't, okay? In past, in the simple past, we use just one auxiliary. So it means I can say I didn't like the popcorns. Or maybe you didn't like the popcorns. Or what about she? She didn't like the popcorns. Or what about he, right? Okay, here, he didn't like the popcorns. So, every time we use a negative statement in the simple past, we use the auxiliary didn't, and you can use any subject, right? So, I mean, in the third person, he, she, and it, one more time we use didn't. So, one more time, I can erase this, and now I say, she didn't like the popcorns. Or, what about he? He didn't like the popcorns. Or what about we? Yes, you and I, we didn't like the popcorns. So pay attention here. This is important when we use the negative statements. Remember that in affirmative, my verb change. Like in present, liked in past. So pay attention in this change, right? My verb changed into a regular verb. So in negative, when we use didn't, the verbs don't change, right? We didn't like the popcorns. Why? Because we are using the auxiliary. The auxiliary indicates that my idea, it's in past, and of course, it's in negative. So we can use some other examples. For example, I can say, I start with I, so wait a minute. I, one more time, and I can say, I didn't study English. Okay, I didn't study English, right? One more time, this is negative. I didn't, and my verb doesn't change. But what about if I use this negative statement and I change it into affirmative? So one more time here, yes? Let's use this negative and we're gonna change it into affirmative. And now I say, I studied, and yeah, English last night. I studied English last night. So one more time. In negative, my auxiliary didn't, and my verb doesn't change. But in affirmative, one more time. I have to change my verb to say I did this action in the past. In this case, last night. I studied English last night. So this is the affirmative and this is the negative statement, okay? But what about the questions, okay? Let's talk about this in a minute. Okay, before we talk about the questions in the simple past, let's talk about the regular verbs and the irregular verbs. One more time I explain you. When we use and when we talk about in past, when we use the simple past, all the verbs, all the actions that we use and we did in the past, they have to change. So the verbs, the actions we know, change into regular verbs or irregular verbs. So for example, I have some present verbs like work, play, and study. They are in present, but they are regular verbs in past. So it means if you want to use one of these actions in past, we have to change them. So I say, I liked the movie. Remember my example in the affirmative statements? Yesterday I went to the cinema and I liked the movie. So this is a regular verb. Or what about play? Play, played. Last month I played soccer with my friends. Yeah, I played soccer with my friends last weekend. This is the present and I use a regular verb in past, played. Or what about study? Studied. So last night I studied English. Before my exam, I studied English. We say that they are regular verbs because we use the normal form of the verbs, but it has or they have an ending like liked, work, worked, play, played, study, studied. So remember the pronunciation. The pronunciation we talk about is in class, okay? But remember, they are regular verbs. What about the irregular verbs? One more time, we have some verbs. Yeah, go, buy, eat, and see. Of course, we know these verbs in present. I go to the cinema, I eat pizza, I see my friends. But this is in present. If you want to talk about the past, if you want to use one of these actions in past, they change. But now, they change into an irregular form. So go, we use went. Buy, we use bought. Eat, we use ate. And finally see, we say saw. I mean, ate. I ate pizza yesterday. Or what about went? I went to school 3 months ago. Or what about see? Saw. I saw my family yesterday. I'm talking in past. So remember, every time we use in past, especially when we use affirmative statements, yes, we use and we have to change the verbs into regular and irregular verbs. Perfect? Now let's talk about the questions. So wait a minute and let's talk about the questions. Yes, let's do it. Okay, finally we have the questions, right? So let's remind, every time we talk about questions, we usually use yes/no questions and information questions. So in a yes/no question, did you play soccer yesterday? That's a yes/no question. Did you play a soccer yesterday? And remember, we have two short answers. Yes, I did, or no, I didn't, right? This is a yes/no question. But in an information question, we use the question words, the WH words. What, where, who, when, what time, how often. In this case, so I ask, when did you play soccer? And my answer, I played soccer yesterday. Okay, let's start here. In a yes/no question and in the information question, one more time we use an auxiliary. Every time we ask a question in past, in the simple past, we have to use the auxiliary did. Every time you ask in past, it's because we have to use the auxiliary did. If you don't use the auxiliary did, hey, you played soccer yesterday, that's not a question. So we have to say, yeah, oye Ramón, did you play soccer yesterday? And Ramon is gonna say, oh, yes, I did. Or maybe he says, no, I didn't. Yes, no questions, right? And of course, we can change my subject. I can talk about he. Let's talk about he. Did he play soccer yesterday? Yes, I did. We have to change it. Did he play soccer yesterday? Yes, he did. And no, he didn't. Did he play soccer yesterday? Yes, he did. No, he didn't. Or what about if we say, hey, did we play soccer yesterday? I don't remember. Did we play soccer yesterday? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. We did. Yes, we did. Or finally we say, no, we didn't. So they are the yes no questions. And remember, every time we ask, especially a yes no question, we use my auxiliary did and the most important, the verb. The verb doesn't change. Did we play soccer yesterday? That's perfect. But what about information questions? So in the information questions I told you, right? We usually use when, what, where, what time, how often. In this case, I use when. So when did you play soccer? That's an information question. Hey, when? When did you play soccer? So one more time we use an auxiliary. Why? It's a question. It's a question. Don't forget it. Yes, no questions and information questions. We have to use the auxiliary did. So when did you play soccer? Remember, my auxiliary and my verb doesn't change. When? Let me think. When did I play soccer? Oh, I played soccer yesterday. So pay attention in the question. In the question, I use my auxiliary did and my verb doesn't change. But when I answer the question, especially if it's an information question, so my verb changes. I played soccer yesterday. Let's try a different verb. Okay, let's change my verb here and I change this. Let me think, a different verb. Okay, when did you eat pizza? Pizza. Hey, when did you eat pizza? When did I eat pizza? I remember. I ate pizza last weekend, right? Oh, I remember, I ate pizza last weekend. When did you eat pizza? I ate pizza last weekend. One more time, I explain. In questions, we use auxiliaries. Yes, no question, auxiliary. Information question, auxiliary. In a yes, no question, remember, we have short answers. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. Yes, we did. Or no, we didn't. But in an information question, we use when. In this case, when. But we can say what or we can say where. I choose when. When did you eat pizza? Remember, the verbs don't change in questions. The verbs don't change. Why? Because the auxiliary, when did you eat pizza? But my answer, one more time, in my answer, my verb changed. And remember, this is an irregular verb. Eat, ate. I ate pizza last weekend. So, and now we have affirmative, negative, and questions in the simple past. So, let's check this as fast as we can one more time, yeah? Wait a minute, one more time. Let me erase this. And now we have information questions, yes, no questions, negative statements, and affirmative statements. Let me erase the board, okay? Wait a minute. Okay, so let's finish this. Remember, today we talk about the simple past, and every time we talk about the simple past, we use sentences in affirmative, negative, and remember, we have two ways to ask: yes/no questions and information questions. Remember, every time we use and we talk about the actions in the past, the verbs change into regular or irregular verbs, right? Especially when we use affirmative. I ate pizza last weekend. Ate? Yes, this is an irregular verb in past. What's the present form? Eat. I eat? No, this is past. I ate pizza last weekend. So my verb changed. But remember, in negative, I use an auxiliary, just one auxiliary. I didn't, she didn't, we didn't, they didn't. Didn't is my auxiliary in negative. And I say, I didn't eat pizza last weekend. Me? I am on a diet. Yes, I didn't eat pizza last weekend. I use my auxiliary didn't, and don't forget this. The verbs in negative with didn't don't change. I didn't eat. I didn't eat pizza last weekend. What about in the questions? Remember, we have yes/no questions and we have information questions. So one more time, in a question we use an auxiliary, and my auxiliary is this. Did you eat pizza last weekend? So my auxiliary, and one more time, the verbs don't change. The same with the information question. Where did you eat pizza? Where? Oh, I ate pizza at Domino's. Where did you eat pizza? My auxiliary did, because it's a question, and of course, I don't use a simple past verb. I use the normal form of these verbs. Okay, I hope you do understand this. I hope you, and I want you to repeat this video as many times as you want. And of course, if you have questions, if you have something to tell me, please, see you here, no, there, yeah? See you there in front of the computer in the next class. So, have a nice weekend, have a nice week, have an excellent Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I don't know where you're watching this video, and see you in the class, okay? Bye, 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 and take care, bye.